energy transition and what would be the role of the civil society, the challenges, and what is at stake. So it's organized by the coalition of the French-speaking people. We are really pleased to be with you today. We don't want to lose too much time, as you know. We are the 9th and almost, and we are all tired, so we will start. And the other people will join us after. So we will quickly present you the panelists that will do a presentation for us. We have Michel Lamine Sissi. Lamine Sissi is the country director of ACF Senegal. Mr. Sissi, you can join the scene. We have Naya Maiti. She's from Morocco. She is working in development communication consulting. Madame Maiti, you can join the scene. We have Raissa Ouria. She's the coalition coordinator. You can join the panelists.
Nos intervenants sont là. Mais je voudrais, avant déjà de
I would like, before leaving the floor to our experts, start to leave the floor to Madame Raissa Ouria, that is the coordinator of CAFER, to give a keynote speech. Madame Raissa, you have the floor.
Voilà. Raissa, vous avez la parole.
So, Raissa, you have the floor. Oh, no. Thank you, Mr. Mamadou, to leave me the floor. I'm Raissa Ouria. I'm the coordinator of the network of the coalition of the French-speaking African countries for the renewable energy. It's a network that was created 2 years ago, and the debate started 2 years ago, and it was launched recently, 2 months ago, in Senegal. So why, as stakeholders in the society, we decided to gather our forces to create this coalition? Because we felt the need, because as civil society, we plead the same cause, the sustainable energy, and we felt left behind regarding the lack of opportunity, the lack of means available for the francophonic Africa. So we had to gather with the language we speak, to gather our forces and implement our action in our communities in the francophonic Africa. And we also got aware in our activity that francophonic Africa has a huge potential in terms of renewable energy, and we had to promote that to the government with the strategy of our policies that meet the needs, our needs, to implement those actions in our communities. So here in a few words, the reason why we, the organizers of the civil society, we decided to create a dedicated platform for the French-speaking people to put in collaboration our activities and given impact in the rural level. Okay, but can you say the perspective of the network for the years to come and regarding the energy transition? At the moment, we have approximately 19 countries that are represented in the coalition, with more than 20 organizations of the civil society. Our perspective is to enlarge, to broaden this network so that every person speaking French can join this network so that we can work together. So in terms of perspective, we want to launch a campaign for promoting renewable energies based on the scientific researches, and that can allow us to find innovative solutions. 2 months ago, we visited the wind stations of Dabadia. We discussed with the responsibles. We saw the reality in terms of sustainable energy, the potential and the challenges that we can come up with that can be adapted to our communities. We also want to reinforce to build capacity of our actors, to give them the tools and the necessary information so that when they come to see the communities, they can bring right solutions so that every people, even the grandmother in the village, can feel impacted for those solutions and use them for sustainable development. Thank you, Raissa. You have indicated that the coalition with the francophonic people, and come back on the reason why this coalition was implemented. As you know, we share a lot with the French-speaking people, our networks, but we notice that often the French-speaking people are seeing a lot of difficulties because the linguistic barrier is a reality. And beyond that, there is the cultural aspects. Of course, things can be different from a space to another, so it means that a lot of time there are factors that are intervening, making the fact that the French-speaking people cannot understand. So that's why the French-speaking countries get a consultation to be able to play their role in the sustainable energy topic. So, like you said, the coalition in Dakar and the perspective, so you have a lot to do, and emphasizing the scientific research. It's important because the research sometimes is neglected, but it's a responsibility. So it's good that the coalition emphasizes that, but beside the research, it's important that coalition intervenes on the political level. So when we talk about renewable energies, there is policies, there is text, so we have to know how our governments can work so that we promote the sustainable energy to make it a reality and people have better access to the energies. Now we will continue to leave the floor to Naya with what represents the private sector. Raissa will speak about the role in the transition with the private sector in the circular economy, the waste management, and understand the role of the private sector and how this sector is intending to accompany these processes. So thank you. I would like to greet this initiative of creating a French-speaking coalition to win fields. We lost some moments because of the language barrier, so now we can advance and make the most of the exchanges between the countries. Today I will speak about Morocco. We know what is happening in work sites in terms of energy transition or sustainable energies, but Morocco committed in some strategies, and now we see projects rising in terms of green hydrogen or solar energy, but it's not what I want to talk about. Like you said, I will talk about the initiatives of private sector in Morocco to participate in the energy transition. So I'm working in a company of industrial waste management. This company, as you underline, in terms of development, got invested with a laboratory, an internal laboratory, but also with partnership with the public sector or ministries or academics or academies to develop technologies and solutions that allow to produce energy through the treatment and valorization of the waste, of the industrial waste. So this sector, it has a civil societies that represent it. So it's sort of coalition and association where the industrial people created a discussion space to advance in the development theme, but also to advocate the changing of the rules and put the work in the private sector and the energy production that are efficient. So in Morocco, we reached this phase of advocating within the framework of the management and valorization of the waste. And this sector also presented through the commissions within the ministries to push the kingdom to go forward in this decarbonization strategy, but also to highlight the role that this sector can play if it has more investment and funding that go towards those laboratories and fund the research and development. So the companies that I represent has agreement and partnership with industries to formulate innovative solutions that will be rising in the months to come. As a company, we produce the solid recovery combustible, so it represents the waste that pollute if they are sent in the waste in the rubbish tip. It allows us to process 40,000 tons of industrial waste and transform them in energy so that our client can reduce their gaseous effect emission to 40,000 tons. So less emissions of CO2 and greenhouse effect and less pollution. So it's an alternative to the fossil fuels, but also to process elements that pollute, whether the phreatic table or the atmosphere. So working in the industrial sector, we recover the products that are processed and transformed in energy for sectors that are really needing energy. So to conclude, for the coalition, we are ready to create with you a private sector college to promote the the civil society, that it can create jobs, it can allow to bring technological solutions. So it comes from the private sector, but also is bringing well-being for the inhabitants around. You remember their policy in terms of ESG, and the inhabitants benefit from a lot of installation facilities from the wind station. So we have association, and we are invested into social initiatives, and we strongly believe that the partnerships with all the stakeholders and a participative and holistic approach would support what our government are implementing, but also raise awareness of the economic actor to his crucial and essential role in the change that is not avoidable anymore. So either we change and we go to a just energy transition that is clean and inclusive, or our continent will not have any natural resources.
Merci. C'est un développement extrêmement riche, mais je ne vais pas vous... Je voudrais tout simplement, déjà, on sait quand on parle de promotion d'énergie renouvelable, le secteur privé est
energy, so the private sector is necessary. So I believe this is something which is very well known, but of course in the countries the private sector is suffering a lot because the regulation does not allow for their development in several initiatives. So is the private sector facing the same problems in Morocco? Well, interesting question. The legal regulation, the legal legislation in the field of environment is very rich in Morocco. To talk about the field of appreciation of energy, well, there is a law which is about to be amended in order to face all the problems concerning climate change or economic issues. So this is a real challenge which the private sector is encountering, but there is also a challenge concerning funding. For this sector to be to thrive, there must be investments. This does not end funding. So we have the Lost and Damaged Fund. Well, we have to take advantage of this fund. The populations which are affected by climate change, especially the most vulnerable populations, and those that allow these populations to have a revenue, to have a professional activity, and this professional activity will allow them to have access to their social rights, to be protected against all the problems, and to have a revenue. So to summarize, we need an effective and applicable legislation, and we need a funding access which is fair towards enterprises regardless of their size, and small and medium enterprises must have access to the good green funding which are given by the investment banks and all the other banks. So thank you. Now we have spoken about the challenges and funding, so that's why we have Michel Aminsisi, who is the country director. Can I add something? Yes, of course. Of course, you can. You have the floor. Yes, I'd just like to repeat what just said in terms of funding. I believe that one of the recommendations which has come out during our visit to the wind plant is that we have to go towards an industrialization phase. It is important for us, African countries, countries to have all the necessary materials, all the necessary elements in order to increase the production of these tools. These elements in terms of renewable energies in order to allow our communities to have low-cost energy and power, and so this can allow us to reduce the production costs and the purchase cost. So electrification is great. We need investments, and we need the private sector to achieve our objectives. Okay, industrialization, as you said, is a necessary tool, and so of course we're talking about funding. That's why, as I was saying, we have Commissioner Lamine Sissé, who is a country director, ICF country director in Senegal, as a philanthropic association. He will tell us what is the role you have in energy transition. So what is the role of philanthropic associations such as ICF in this energy transition? So, Mr. Lamine, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Lamine, for your invitation. As you said, this initiative concerning implementation of this coalition for the French-speaking country responds a great need about the real marginalization of the group of countries that speak French in all the negotiations and especially these issues. So we need we need a coalition of French-speaking countries so that all language barriers can be overcome, but also cultural aspects. As we said in ACF, in its role of support to the coalition can contribute to the expression of the African voice. So this explains the creation of the African Climate Foundation. So this is a foundation which was established 3 or 4 years ago. It is a very young foundation which was born in Southern Africa, but which wants to involve governments and civil society on climate change issues, but it wants to make sure that climate change is an opportunity rather than a threat, and in order to improve the life conditions of our population. In this framework, we have been working with countries such as Nigeria, Senegal, and several other countries. So to answer your question, what can a philanthropic association do? What is the role of a philanthropic association? We are a philanthropic association, so this means that we were established, we stem from a passion to support initiatives in order to go beyond organizations such as the banks, the private sectors cannot reach. And we want to provide a strategic support in order to support to their initiatives and actions. When we talk about energy transition, we talk about fair energy transition. So how can we make energy transition, which is an obligation for all countries and all the group? How can we make this energy transition fair? How can we allow Africa, which is the continent that gives the minimum contribution to climate change, is suffering a lot. It is the most affected continent by climate change. And so there is the issue concerning the sharing of costs. How can we make sure that this energy transition is supported by a fair, adjusted, adapted funding? So, of course, there is a lot to say about climate finance. How can we have an impact on the debts of the countries, and how can we make this reduce the margin of the countries so that funds are used on health, education, etc. So we see that money are taken from sectors such as health and education and are used for climate change. So these are important questions for us. When I consider a country like Senegal, there is an energy transfer. It is based on the realities, on the needs of the country, and it has to be done based on the needs of this country. So in a country like Senegal, which are the needs in terms of access to energy? Today in Senegal, we know that it is the rural environment which is the less supported, and so this transition must be favorable to the rural sector and must meet the needs of the sector. More education, more health care for the rural populations, but there must be an economic transformation also. The producers must have access to water in order to produce the whole year. So agriculture, production of agricultural products, so for us these are important issues. How can we make sure that this transition is fair? So one aspect is to strengthen the civil sector. The civil sector has to have all the necessary capacities in order to make decisions. We have to make sure that the energy transition is fair, transparent, that there is fair communication. So we're talking about coalition. The coalition has to be strong. How can we develop coalitions? How can we work on all the aspects of communication and advocacy? How can the civil society have access? How can they develop their arguments? How can they make research, as you said? Because energy transition is something new for some countries. So how can we use fair elements, and how can we talk to the government with real arguments? Because Senegal is a country which is about to commit itself on gas, oil. The government has a very ambitious program of development of fossil energies, and so Senegal needs to question and to challenge all these policies of the government in the context in which countries are about to go towards decarbonization. So is it fair to use resources? What are the risks associated to these investments? So all this work which the civil society must be able to do with the governments with strong arguments and strong evidence in order to question these policies. So there is a support. There's a lot of support with the governments because ACF, for example, works with the civil society in all these aspects I mentioned, but it is important to support the government in the development and design of projects. Support has to be given so that the government can develop these projects in the rural areas, because this support is lacking. But it is also the private sector, because as I said, this energy transfer has to bring a transformation. So you spoke about industrialization. So it must be an opportunity. Countries like Senegal, and I welcome the example of Morocco, which integrated renewable energies. So the local private sector has to benefit from the opportunities, and this requires work on new technologies, technology transfer, access to funding. I give the example of Senegal. Now we're working with the local private sector to see how the private sector can access bank funding to finance all these projects. So several aspects. So we have to be between private sector, government, civil society, so that people can communicate, can discuss and work together, and can make common decisions. I will not speak more, but these are, so I'm talking about the strategic support, which involves several actors and which will make this transition fair, will make this transition an example.
Thank you, Lamine. You mentioned the importance of ACF that was born in South Africa. It was the first country that benefited from this JET-P, and then after this success we got Senegal. Like it's a process. We can consider ourselves as a process. We have those two countries today, but we have to expect that in a few years, this new initiative, this new mechanism of funding, we can expect that in a few years, other countries can, of course, join this process. So we have to think or anticipate the disposition we have to take to accompany the other civil societies, the other Francophone civil societies. The question can be asked in Senegal, about it, but going through those stakes, we haven't even finished with South Africa. So did you ever think about this perspective to position yourself regarding JET-P in the years to come? Thank you. As Senegal person, as a person from Senegal, we can be very proud of being in Africa's second country that mobilized and invested in the JET-P, because the government of Senegal did a lot of efforts to put the sustainable energy at the core of the discussion. So there are a lot of investment that have been done, so that today the country has 30% of the mixed energy. So it's how accompany this process to go beyond. So the government committed to go up to 40% from 2030. So it will require to transform completely the system of the country. So it's huge. Fortunately, we have a support of the international community. So when you take the example of South Africa, it's asking the question of funding, and the funding needs to be available quickly. From now, we see that the funding are not coming quickly. So how we can work on this model of Senegal, learning the lessons of South Africa, and ensuring that there is a quick mobilization of the funding, and make Senegal the model for all the other countries, because it's sure that all the other countries are committed on transition. They are starting to develop sustainable energy, but today succeeding the model of Senegal is a country like Senegal. It can work, it can be it can drive opportunities, create opportunities. So we are working to support the actors in the country, in Senegal, but the process is engaged since a lot of time. It's working on problematics, it's working on reduction of fossil fuels, it's all the communication and mobilization work that we do within the other countries. It's working on the negotiations, the international negotiation to ensure that civil society is here, that we have events like COP with those negotiations that we have to push forward. So it's accompany the civil societies. It's what we are doing since a lot of time. Like, you know that in Senegal we created a network with a lot of West African countries. I come from here, and they can put in context the question of the priorities of the country. So it's work that started a long time ago, and it will continue. Today, the countries Senegal constitutes a model that can be innovative, and we can test this partnership with the international community and the country and see how quickly we can transform the energy system of a country, but also create opportunities of development. So I don't know if I answered your question. Yes, thank you, Lamy. We have a short time, but I will leave the floor to Naya to add to what Lamine said. Thank you, Mr. Lamine. So your declaration, your statement remind me in Morocco, your sustainable energy. We are not so far because in Morocco we want to have more than 60% of products produced from sustainable energies from 2030, and this project is advancing. But it advances even though due to constraints, policy constraints, we understand that energy and policy are challenges, and it's another challenge that our country is facing challenges. So we need an energy sovereignty. So thank you for raising those points, and I really thank the association that support all the stakeholders in the energy transition, and we are all citizens before being private actors of the civil society actors. Thank you, Nadia. It was useful to leave you the floor. Without further ado, I will turn to the audience in case you have reactions, contributions, questions. So you have the floor if somebody would like to bring clarifications or give contributions or ask questions. You have the floor. Yes, Ousmane Kounati. Yes, Ousmane Kounati. We need a mic. So the sessions are recorded. So it's nice to have mic. And they are interpreted also. There is no mic. So come here. Come to the scene.
Okay, merci.
Thank you. So I'm Ousmane Gramatoumade. I come from Mali. I work from the NGO AFAC. It's a partner organization of the coalition. So I would like to ask the question to the foundation, knowing what could be the contribution of the youth and the women. And when we speak of energy, what can be what the communities can bring within the African context. Thank you. So thank you, Ousmane. So we will leave the floor to Lamine to answer, and then we will continue with further questions. Or maybe we take the questions. So you have the floor. Thank you. Congratulations, the panelists. I'm Mr. Gelele. I come from Congo-Brazzaville. I work in an agency of execution of the green economy. And regarding the basin of Congo, we celebrated the 21st energy anniversary of Central Africa. So, you know, energy, it's a question today that is taking as hostage Africa. So this connection with the private sector, public sector, civil societies, I would like to understand, did you manage to harmonize, to create a synergy with all the stakeholders without forgetting the research and with the education and training? Because today the youth, you know, in the African continent there are more youth. So is there like a training where youth can have the exact knowledge so that we can add innovation? So here is what I wanted to understand at your level. If yes, it exists where? Because don't forget that we have this 2063 agenda. So how we will do this energy transition? Did you ever think, for example, I met my friend of Kinshasa. For me to leave Brazzaville, I have 5 minutes by boat. So how we will do so without energy, the development is not possible. Because without research, no development, and the mobilization of funds, because there is this issue. I think 4 days ago here with the African Development Bank, they said Africa doesn't have issue with money, but we don't know how to ask. So as in my country, in Congo, we are the champion in sequestrated carbon. So help us how to consume well. The speech has to be based on the results. Do you have a mechanism of follow-up and assessment of all what you are doing? At what level we are speaking in the end? Thank you. Mr. Daoudagui from Senegal. How are you? I'm member of PADJA. Within the framework of the energy transition, my issue is, at the moment in Africa, we noticed a colonization of our resources, but also a colonization of our decisions. If we talk about energy transition, the scientific research was really clear. We can resolve all the matters in terms of energy. And today we talk about energy transition, but unfortunately, we can't go forward sustainable energy without mastering not the mechanism, but the techniques that allow to have this energy transition. Because if we have to claim for money again, if we have to ask for technological assistance and take the material that in its conception that is not even adapted to our temperature, it will create problems. That is why we are told about energy transition, but unfortunately there is the one working in countercurrent. So today we are at 4% in greenhouse gas emissions, but it's not that simple. It's a pretext to allow us to use the fossil fuels. It's particularly the case of Senegal. If today we are going to use oil and gas, and now we talk about energy transition, it's like if we are told the European people they have emitted a lot of fossil fuels. And the President Macky Sall has said, will we talk about development without going to energy transition? So the JP is fine, but we have to base on experience. What happened, for example, in Indonesia, we noticed that there is not enough involvement in with our communities. In Senegal, the society tried to catch up so that the community works with civil society that have more strengths between the different stakeholders, because the money dedicated for the JETP, most of them there is not a definition of the axis that has to be funded. We have a fund of 2 or 5, but it's way below that what we need. But there is not a reality of what will be used. How we will use those JETP in Senegal, for example, if we are at 30%, we are advanced regarding the forecast. But this trajectory of JETP will not be a bottleneck, because the availability of the money will go above the 2030, maybe until 2037, and it's an extremely difficult issue. The essential is that African people have to master the technologies. We have to go to the scientific research. The example is really simple. When we talk about solar solution, wind solution, why us as African people, we don't have enough technologies, enough science to go towards by ourselves this energy transition. But it's not because we will claim for money, and this money we are not given, even if the 100 billion committed are not been done. If we talk about a loss and damage fund, when the money will come. So I would like, with the civil society, with the NGOs, we have to go toward the development of Africa through the energy transition by ourselves and for ourselves.
C'est vrai qu'il a soulevé là un sujet quand même un peu passionnant et en fait qui est un débat, parce que il a une position, mais il y a plusieurs positions au Sénégal, même au sein de la société civile, c'est cette question justement de JETP et de transition énergétique. Alors je pense que nous allons très prochainement vers une certaine harmonisation des positions de la société civile. C'est important, parce qu'en réalité, nous ne parlons pas le même langage. Et ça, c'est pas bon. Donc, en tant que société civile, et moi, voilà, je ne veux même pas dire ma position, mais évidemment, c'est une position que je soutiens. Mais je reconnais également à côté qu'il y a une multitude de positions qui s'opposent à la vôtre. Et donc, je pense que, bien sûr, nous avons ICF qui est au Sénégal, lui, il comprend la situation aussi. Il nous faut fondamentalement aller vers cette position qui va non seulement concerner le Sénégal, mais tous les pays membres du réseau de la coalition CAFER. Donc voilà, Faustin, peut-être on va faire la dernière, sera le dernier intervenant avant de remettre la parole au panéliste et comme ça de pouvoir terminer. Donc Faustin, vous avez la parole.
So, you have the floor. So, thank you, Debano, for stand from Democratic Republic of Congo. We have spoken about challenges, perspectives on energy transition in the context of civil society. So I'd like to talk about a challenge about the methodologies we found when we tried to raise awareness, how we can adapt to this energy transition to the African context, because when we because when there is energy transition in developed countries, so they have been using fossil fuels, and so they will go towards renewable energies. But when we look at the African context, especially in our country, also the accessibility to fossil fuels does not exist. So how can we talk about transition when we haven't never used fossil fuels? How can we talk about transition? So this is a challenge that we find. So we can reflect on the methodological approach, energy transition connected to the African context. We have never used fossil fuels, so we talk about common transition. This is a challenge we find when we talk to a specific context. Okay, thank you. I believe it's clear. If there are no other interventions, we can give the floor to the panelists, starting from Nadia. So a question has been asked to you. What's your answer? Thank you. Thanks to our friend from Congo who asked a very relevant question. The private sector has been called upon responsibility through some financial institutions which ask the private sector to find solutions. So now they say it's a partner and it has to give solutions. The interest now is the ecological militant. We have to talk about what happens at the other side of the other side. So you asked the question, an interesting question. What we so we implemented synergies which were productive. So we did in the private sector. We did it in the private sector. We elaborated some patents which were done in collaboration and partnership with university labs through some conventions, agreements, which give PhD holders and researchers to learn theory, to studies, but also to evolve in our context on our platform and to touch the material, to acquire their know-how so that they can be effective, they can work after their graduation or diploma. You spoke about assessment, monitoring of development programs. Yes, by taking part in public consultations led by the big financial institutions, World Bank, or other institutions. We are stakeholders of annual meetings of the FMI and of the IMF and the World Bank the month of October to talk about our role and to talk about the challenges. Of course, we have our own responsibility. We have financial instruments. We must have access to technology, and we are called upon to take our social role, but this social role has to be funded. It is easy to establish recommendations, to have ESG activities, but these costs, so you know something about this, but we talk also about the motivation in order to have this way of proceeding, which doesn't have any aim to profit. So to objective is the improvement of the safeguard measures of financial institutions. We are the members of the Centre 4C through a club, so as private sector and actors of the civil society. This center, a training center on climate change, is made of 4 poles. We are on 2 poles, 3, so private sector pole, university pole, and civil society pole, and public sector where we cannot be everywhere. So this allows us to give inclusive responses, and I know I speak much, so access to energy, well, first of all, access to energy. If we try to convince rural people to dig holes to find water, because water is necessary for your production. If you destroy aquifers in order to have gas or to have coal, you will not have water. If you pollute the air you breathe, is your health which will be affected. And in spite of the goals you can gain through fossil energies, you will get sick and you will not have the money to get the right medicine. Okay, thank you. Very quickly, we are almost finished our time. So can you answer the question that was addressed to you? Yes, thank you. I believe that in order to answer this question, so the sex issue is fundamental, the gender issue is fundamental. Energy is the factor of discrimination. We see this, we see it makes the difference between rural environment and urban environment. It is also a matter of energy. So we see energy as a need, but also as something, an economic element in order to better conserve agricultural production, having access to health care, because it's an issue of energy. So all these questions are connected to energy, and so the process must be inclusive, and the social society has to be represented in all negotiations. We have seen this, for example, in the case of Senegal. We have seen that the negotiations held between the government and the partners, the civil society was not there. So this is an opportunity to push more, to make this process evolve. Social society has to be, civil society has to be there, and we have to make sure that funding can go towards the rural environment, so that this sector can be affected, and women. So when we talk about energy, we talk about clean cooking. Because in order to cook, women have to go find some wood fire, and this causes deforestation. So these are all issues, and it is the role of the civil society to work on this, and we are there to accompany the civil society. So economic potential, how can this energy transfer be used for integration? And there are some initiatives on the energy market in West Africa. So we have to make this integration concern also renewable energies, the potential for Congo, where there are big dams, can make it possible to provide energy to all the other countries. The countries can exchange.
C'est toutes les réformes que devons mettre en place et que les gouvernements doivent mettre en place pour attirer les investissements du secteur privé.
The investment in the private sector. There are reforms today to invest in energy is more expensive in the rural environment. There are reforms so the risk connected to renewable energy.
Je pense que c'est quelques questions sur lesquelles on peut... Ça va? Oui, je pense que c'est quelques éléments qui sont importants. Il faut que cette transition énergétique-là
this energy transition must allow for an economic transformation,
de développement, que ça soit de nouvelles opportunités.
For the creation of new opportunities, and this passes through the development of technologies, because in the value chain everything is produced outside in other countries, batteries, etc. So these do not respond to the conditions, so we have to control and supervise all these techniques. We have to work on the production
ça va contribuer à l'industrialisation, ça va créer des emplois, ça va créer des revenus,
so
et
this
ça va
will
vraiment
create
bénéficier à la
income,
maîtrise.
will create
Dans le cadre du plaidoyer que nous
jobs.
faisons,
So in
que ça soit
the
pas juste des
framework
investissements
of
avec des
the
entreprises
advocacy we
européennes qui vont venir
create, we
produire
also
ces
will
énergies, mais que
have
le secteur privé
European
local
agencies
soit assez
coming
fort,
to us. The
qu'il ait
local
accès au
sector will
financement,
be
qu'il ait
stronger,
accès aux
will have
technologies
access
pour
to
pouvoir
funding
contribuer
technologies in
aussi
order
à
to contribute
tout ça. Donc, je ne sais
all
pas,
this.
pour des questions de temps, peut-être je vais m'en arrêter là.
Maybe I will
Et s'il
stop
y a des
here.
choses
If
sur lesquelles on
you
peut
have
développer.
Merci
some
Lamine.
other
Merci
questions,
Lamine.
I can
Nous allons... Attends, Maya,
reply.
c'est moi qui suis là.
Okay.
Alors, je voudrais dire que nous allons terminer avec Maya
So we
Kaisa
will finish with
pour nous
Ira
dire
Kaisa,
également quel est le
who
message de
will
la
tell
coalition
us what is the message
que la coalition
that
va
the coalition
pour la COP. Quel est le message de la
give to
coalition
COP. So what is the message
à la suite de tout ce que
that
nous avons
the
entendu ici?
coalition
Quel devrait être vraiment le message de la coalition par rapport aux énergies renouvelables?
Merci.
Est-ce que vous entendez bien?
Can you hear
Ça
me?
vient?
Oui.
Ok, ça
Do
marche,
you
vous avez la parole.
understand? Okay.
Merci. Je pense que
I believe
l'une des
that
questions
one of
que
the
notre ami congolais
questions which our
sur
friend
lesquelles elle est
from
revenue,
Congo
c'est pas de recherche, pas de
asked,
développement.
no
Je pense que c'est
research,
une
no
très belle
development.
phrase
I believe this is a great
que nous,
statement.
au sein du réseau CAFEM, nous avons compris tôt. Et c'est dans ce cadre-là que nous avons essayé de réunir des acteurs qui sont dans ce domaine-là, comme Nadia. C'est vrai qu'on ne l'a pas précisé, elle est venue au nom du secteur privé, mais elle est également dans la recherche. Et c'est une acteur fondamentale pour notre coalition. C'est la raison pour laquelle nous l'avons invitée à rejoindre ce réseau pour partager avec nous son expérience dans le domaine de la recherche et nous permettre, nous, d'avoir de bonnes solutions pour nos communautés. Pas seulement d'aller et dire, voilà, utiliser les énergies renouvelables, mais vraiment leur donner ce qu'il faut pour qu'ils puissent vraiment mieux s'adapter. L'autre également, c'est pour ça également nous avons organisé ce side event. C'est pour que vous qui êtes ici puissiez nous rejoindre et apporter votre plus-value à cette coalition qui est très jeune, mais on a vraiment besoin de vous pour pouvoir l'agrandir et de faire des merveilles en Afrique francophone. C'est une initiative qui, je peux dire, qui est très nouvelle, qui est innovante. Elle est quand même première au sein de l'Afrique francophone et il faut vraiment que nous puissions tous ensemble joindre les mains et promouvoir les énergies renouvelables pour le développement de nos communautés, pour la résilience de nos communautés, pas seulement comme M. Lamine a dit, juste éclairé, mais une énergie productive qui va permettre à tout un chacun de pouvoir l'utiliser dans son travail, dans ses activités. Merci.
Merci, Madame la coordinatrice. Le message est entendu. Votre appel également. Je pense que, comme elle l'a dit, c'est une coalition trop jeune, mais très ambitieuse. Et l'intérêt aujourd'hui, c'est de se dire que l'Afrique francophone a un cadre à travers lequel elle peut véritablement parler de tous ces débats qui se posent, la transition énergétique, le jet l'adaptation. donc, cette coalition s'érige véritablement en un cadre d'expression pour les pays d'Afrique francophone. Et donc, du coup, nous comptons sur vous, nous comptons véritablement sur le secteur privé, nous comptons sur les organisations de la société civile d'autres pays, nous comptons sur le gouvernement pour faire justement de cette coalition un cadre solide. Mais nous comptons également sur les organisations philanthropiques comme ICF qui suit la coalition depuis, bien sûr, sa naissance. ICF est avec nous et je pense qu'elle compte véritablement travailler avec elle et nous avons bon espoir que justement cette collaboration sera fructueuse. Donc je voudrais vraiment vous remercier, vraiment chers participants, d'avoir eu cette patience. Ce n'est pas évident. Nous sommes vers la fin de la COP. Véritablement, la fatigue est partout et il est déjà trop tard, mais vous avez tenu à rester et donc du coup cela témoigne de l'intérêt que vous avez sur le sujet, mais également de votre détermination effectivement à suivre justement ces genres de débats. Donc merci également aux panélistes qui ont tenu le coup, Nadia, mais également chez Lamine qui est extrêmement occupé, très busy. Il s'est arraché dans une réunion pour véritablement déjà nous accompagner. Donc il est toujours présent. À chaque fois que nous avons besoin effectivement de lui, il répond présent. Donc je voudrais, au nom de la coalition, vous dire merci beaucoup. Donc voilà, nous terminons et nous pouvons prendre une photo de famille, de souvenir déjà. Voilà, merci beaucoup.